Welcome to the deep dive. So forget that old idea that, a 4-year degree is the only way to get a good career.
Right.
Today, we're really diving headfirst into a whole pile of fascinating information about career changes, looking at 2024 and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
We're exploring why so many people are rethinking things and, maybe more importantly, uncovering these different alternative routes that are popping up.
That's exactly it. We've basically been swimming in data. We've got stuff from Novorzme's big look at career change stats, findings from American student assistants on these non-degree programs.
Okay.
The Degree-Free YouTube channel, they had some interesting takes. Plus, Electro IQ on career shifts, Career Flow's advice on getting jobs without degrees, and this text called Beyond Degrees.
Wow, quite a stack.
Yeah. So the goal really is to pull all that together, synthesize it, and give you a clear picture of how things are changing, what actually matters now for, your career path.
Okay, let's unpack this then. I mean, it definitely feels like there's a big shakeup happening in the world of work. You hear great resignation all the time. What's the real story there?
Well, that new resume data gives some scale. Back in September 2024, something like 4.4 million Americans just quit their jobs voluntarily.
4.4 million. Wow.
Yeah, and that sheer number of people moving creates, well, a lot of openings, a lot of opportunity for people thinking about switching things up.
And it wasn't just a tiny fraction either. Novorzme said 59%, nearly 60% of middle-income American workers were considering a change.
Mm-hmm.
And the kicker is 44% of them had an actual plan. Like they weren't just daydreaming.
No, it's serious intent. And what's really interesting is the why behind it. It seems the pandemic was a huge catalyst. Nearly half of American workers were thinking about a career change because of it.
Half. That's huge.
It suggests this massive reassessment of priorities, right? What people really want from work, from life overall.
So what is it they're looking for? What's pushing people to actually make that switch?
Well, a few key themes keep coming up. Both Novorzme and Electro IQ pointed out that back in 2021, the #1 driver was wanting a better work-life balance.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, 27% cited that. It really shows a shift in, what people value most.
Totally. After all the disruption, it figures people want more control over their time, their well-being, outside the 9 to 5. What else came up?
Salary, naturally, is still a big one. 26% were looking for more money.
Sure.
But interestingly, another 26% just wanted to try something new. And get this, 41% who thought about changing said it was because their employers basically ignored how stressed everyone was during the pandemic.
Oof. That speaks volumes. People want workplaces that actually care, right?
Exactly. And it goes beyond just the pandemic response. Electro IQ found that things like heavy workload, long hours, that was over 27%. Not enough pay. That's 17%. And feeling stuck, like no room for advancement, that was almost 16%. Those are major reasons people just quit.
And linking that back,
Yeah.
the flexibility thing is massive, isn't it?
Undeniable. Novorzme and Beyond Degrees both found 76% of workers want remote options, flexible schedules.
76%.
Yeah, and it's not just a nice to have, it's driving decisions. 41% of people planning a career switch were specifically looking for that kind of flexible setup.
Okay, so the desire to change is strong, but, it can't be easy. What stops people? What are the big hurdles? It feels like a massive jump sometimes.
You're absolutely right, and the sources definitely highlight some big ones. Novorzme says the most common barrier is feeling like you don't have the right skills, transferable skills or knowledge.
Right. How does what I do now apply somewhere else?
Exactly. That feeling of being unqualified, it really holds people back.
That idea of starting from scratch must feel pretty overwhelming.
Totally. And Electro IQ adds that money worries are huge. 57% cited lack of financial security. The uncertainty, maybe a pay cut initially, it makes sense. People hesitate.
Yeah, for sure.
Plus, 40% weren't even sure what field to go into, and 37% felt they just didn't have the required education for something different.
That's interesting, the perception about education being a barrier, especially since we're about to talk about pathways that aren't the traditional degree route.
Precisely. And Novorzme also found this interesting bit about Britain. 32% of workers there struggled to even see where their skills could fit elsewhere.
Wow.
And only 16% felt confident they knew how to transfer them. And then there's the emotional side. A third of Brits, 34%, just worried about making a fresh start. That's real.
Yeah, totally understandable. Okay, let's switch it up a bit. What about age? Does that factor into who's changing careers?
It definitely seems to. Some interesting numbers here. Novorzme found the average age for a big career change is 39.
39, okay.
They also noted workers aged 25 to 34 seem more willing generally to learn new skills or just switch careers entirely, maybe feeling like they have more runway to pivot.
That makes sense. Maybe less invested in one specific track yet?
Could be. Although here's a twist. Novorsame also said that same 25-34 group in Britain was actually the least willing to change.
Huh.
Yeah, so maybe cultural factors, economic conditions play a big role too. But then Electro IQ's data sort of aligns with the younger worker trend. They found 26% of employees aged 25-29 were seeking a change, the highest percentage of any age group.
Okay. But what about older workers? People further along, is it too late for them?
Apparently not. Novochesme had this pretty surprising stat. One survey found 82% of workers over 45 successfully switched careers.
82%. That's encouraging.
Right. It suggests that even if it feels daunting, plenty of older individuals make successful pivots. And Electro IQ also found the tendency to change was highest for those with 255 years experience. They called it the worker stage, 64% of them.
Okay, this is where I think it gets really, really interesting.
Yeah.
We know why people want to change, what holds them back, but the sources really hammer home this big shift in what employers actually want, right?
Exactly. That's a key takeaway. Sources like Beyond Degrees and Career Flow are pretty clear. That old straight line from degree to career, it's kind of becoming outdated. There's this growing realization from employers that practical skills, actual experience, often count for more than just the paper degree.
And we're seeing real proof of that in hiring, aren't we?
Oh, yeah. CareerFlow mentioned big companies like IBM have actually dropped degree requirements for over half their jobs.
Half. Wow.
Yeah. CareerFlow calls it a degree reset. The focus is shifting to what you can do. And Beyond Degrees backs this up. 82% of hiring managers said problem-solving communication skills. Those are more important than formal education.
82%.
And get this, 94% value portfolios and hands-on experience, even more than academic stuff.
94. Okay, so if the standard college degree isn't the only game in town anymore, what are these alternative routes people can actually take?
Well, the sources point strongly towards these non-degree pathways. ASA.org looked right at these things like apprenticeships, bootcamp, certificates, licenses.
Right.
They offer more focused, often faster ways to get the specific skills that are actually in demand.
And it sounds like these pathways are actually working for people.
The ASA.org report suggests so. Young folks in these programs, they felt more confident about their plans after high school, 70%, versus 57% for others.
Okay.
And they felt more ready for work, 71%. Plus, crucially, they actually had higher employment rates later on 65% compared to 51% for those not in pathways.
And there were some specific stories too, right? Real people making it work.
Yes, exactly. ASA.org and Beyond Degrees told Yis's story. She did a web development boot camp, got a job pretty quickly.
Nice.
And Jordan had a good experience with the Year Up Skills program. So you see these tangible examples of how these routes can really launch careers.
But it's not always a perfect transition, is it? I remember Nadia's experience.
Right, that's an important counterpoint. Nadia did a UX design apprenticeship, but she still ran into some employers who seemed to prefer a traditional degree, even with her practical skills. So while the trend is shifting, old habits or biases can still pop up in hiring.
Let's dig into a couple of those options more. Apprenticeships seem to be getting a lot of buzz.
Yeah, and for good reason. Beyond Degrees really highlights that learn while you earn model. They mentioned a 93% retention rate for apprentices.
93%. That's sticky.
Very. And an average starting salary of $77,000 plus, and this is huge, zero student debt typically.
Zero debt. Wow.
And they even estimated a $300,000 lifetime earnings advantage for apprenticeship grads compared to peers who didn't do one.
That's a seriously compelling financial case, and big companies are getting on board.
Absolutely. Both CareerFlow and Beyond Degrees mention Lockheed Martin investing heavily in apprenticeships. It shows they're being recognized as a really valuable way to build talent.
Okay, what about boot camps or vocational training? They seem like popular ways to get skilled up quickly, too.
Yeah, Beyond Degrees had some impressive stats there, too. Boot camps, an 88% job placement rate within 6 months.
88%, that's solid.
And 73% of grads felt ready for their new careers. Financially, 46% saw salary bumps of 50% or more.
50% increase, not bad.
Not bad at all. And vocational training grads. They earned 6% higher wages by their mid-30s and had better employment rates too, 65% versus 51%.
So whether it's apprenticeships, boot camps,
Yeah.
the common thread is getting those specific, in-demand skills employers want.
That's the core of it. And if you don't have that traditional degree, building a really strong skills-focused portfolio is critical. Career Flow and Beyond Degrees both stress this, showcasing what you can do, your work history, certifications, projects you've nailed, achievements.
Right. Proof of skills. What kind of certification should people maybe look into?
Well, Beyond Degrees mentioned a few widely recognized ones, things from CompTIA, Google Analytics, AWS.
Hmm.
Getting those can really validate your expertise in specific tech areas.
It's also really useful to know which actual jobs are hiring people without necessarily needing that four-year degree.
Definitely. And the sources pointed to some fast-growing areas. Wind turbine service technicians, fastest projected growth like 44.9%.
Wow. Okay. Didn't expect that one.
Yeah. Novoresume, ElectroIQ, Beyond Degrees, all flagged that. Also, nurse practitioners, very high growth to 44.5%.
Okay. Healthcare.
And in tech, data scientists, 35.2% growth, and information security analysts, 33% growth. Big demand there.
And it's not just those super technical fields, is it? Seems broader.
No, you're right. LinkedIn's top jobs for 2024, according to Novoresume and Beyond Degrees, included things like workplace diversity experts, huge hiring growth, 90%,
90%.
frontline e-commerce workers, 75%, and digital content creators, 49%. Plus, Career Flow highlighted skilled trades electricians, plumbers, and online work like transcriptionists, virtual assistants, and that YouTube source made a good point about accounting. Even roles like accounts receivable or payable can be a starting point without needing the full CPA right away.
Freelancing also came up, right?
Yeah.
As another way in.
Absolutely. Career Flow pointed out freelancing gives you that hands-on experience, helps build your portfolio, brings in income, and you're constantly learning new skills. It's a great way to prove yourself.
And then there's the classic advice. Networking. Still important.
Oh, absolutely crucial. Beyond Degrees, it said 70% of jobs come through referrals.
70%.
Yeah. So Career Flow and Beyond Degrees both emphasize using LinkedIn, going to industry events, doing informational interviews. Building those connections is key, whatever your background.
Okay, one last thing, generative AI. We have to touch on that. How might that change things?
Well, ElectroIQ suggested people see it mainly as an opportunity. 76% thought it would help them learn new skills, 73% saw it enhancing creativity, and 72% thought it could improve their work quality.
So more opportunity than threat, maybe?
At least that's the perception right now. Obviously, it's moving fast, but the potential for upskilling and maybe even new kinds of jobs seems significant.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. The big takeaways seem to be, well, the working world is definitely changing fast.
Big time.
There's much more focus on actual skills, real experience, maybe less automatic reliance on just having a four-year degree.
Right, more pathways opening up.
And tons of people are thinking about or actually making career changes, often looking for better balance, maybe new challenges.
And those non-degree routes, apprenticeships, boot camps, they seem to be genuinely working for a lot of people.
Yeah, leading to jobs in high-growth fields that don't always demand that traditional degree. And through it all, building that portfolio, showing your skills and networking, still super important.
Exactly. The picture is one of a really dynamic workforce that values adaptability, learning, and what you can actually do.
Which brings us to our final thought for you, the listener. With all these different ways emerging to get skills and get into good industries, maybe outside that traditional college track, what does career success actually mean to you now in this new landscape? And maybe what's just one small thing, one tiny step you could take, maybe even today, to start exploring a path that feels more like your definition of success?
Good question to ponder.
Definitely. We really encourage you to check out the resources we mentioned if you want to dig deeper and just keep learning about this constantly changing world of work and careers.